Hey everybody, it's Natalie Alicia Gold with the Gold Standard, and I am so excited to have my dear friend Fradel Barbder here with me today. Hey Fradel.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing amazing. And let me tell you all about this amazing woman that is here with us today. She literally embodies the words intense ambition and unbelievable vision. She is the oldest of, catch this, 12 children, and comes from a very Orthodox Hasidic family. And through that, really defined herself as an individual very young in life and started a company called WFG, World Financial Group. Well, she's not some mom and pop little entrepreneur. This woman has over 500 agents working for her at over 15 offices around the country and looking to expand daily. And what I love about Fradel when I was doing the research to really, make this a positive interview is she talks about a confidence and professionalism she has. And I would even like to say it's a quiet confidence. Fradel's not slapping you in the face with "I'm the best and listen to me," but her way and her knowledge of the industry comes across, and you're dealing with a titan. She's been on stages getting awards with the likes of Michael Bloomberg. She's been awarded a Woman on Wall Street award, and she's been on ABC as well. She's also very philanthropic, cares about the children as she's involved in All for One, a children's organization. And what I loved was she is an associate producer of Think, The Legacy of Think and Grow Rich, which, as many of you, I'm sure, love the book, and we want to get into that. Her biggest accomplishment to date is being the mother of Gabriel, Arielle, and Daniel. And she's an amazing mom, an amazing visionary. And Fradel, I'm just so blessed to have you here with me today.
Thank you so much. Wow. I got to get a recording of my intro to use it for other things. That was awesome, Natalie.
And see Natalie in the house.
Yeah, definitely. No, but it's so great to be here. And, a lot of the things you mentioned, I echo for you. You're a mom to a successful entrepreneur. And I just think I'm excited to be on here just to be able to share with your audience, anything that could help them also be successful and have that, power for themselves.
I love that, Fradel. And your biggest day-to-day activity is truly mentoring and coaching your team.
Yes, that's correct.
So tell us a little bit about how you stumbled upon financial services and what it means to you to be able to provide these services to your clients.
Yeah, and the stumbling is exactly that, because I never planned on being in the financial industry. I actually thought I was going to be in the design world. I had an interest in fashion design, graphic design, and little by little, I started realizing that the lifestyle of people within that industry, like the trajectory of where I was going, was not going to lead me to the lifestyle I want. So while I had an interest in that field, it was more important for me to have a certain lifestyle. And I realized interest could be a hobby. It doesn't necessarily have to be a business. And then I was introduced to the financial industry. And as I learned more and more, I started realizing, wow, in any case that you make money, you have to know about it and know how to plan for your financial future. And the more I learned, the more passionate I got about it. And then it sort of moved from my head to my heart when I realized how many people, including my own family, Natalie, you mentioned I'm the oldest of 12 children. Well, I just assumed my parents had it together, right? They had life insurance. They had the retirement plan.
Know what happens when you assume, Fradel?
Exactly. I didn't even know to ask, right? I mean, literally, I just didn't even know. But as I was learning, I said, I literally called my dad. I said, hey, so what type of life insurance do you have? And he's like, I don't have any. So those type of things and then I visited other families and saw that over and over again. They don't know what they don't have enough, all these stories. And I realized, wow, this is not just about making money, although there's great money to be made. It's also about making an impact and really helping people. And when you have savings and you have, about your finances, there's a certain confidence that brings in your life, and it seeps into other areas of your life, your relationships. They say, I don't forget the percentage, but a big amount of divorces are based on financial related.
Number one reason,
right? So it's not just this. I mean, this is an impact that goes into families, legacies, generations. And so that fires me up to be able to actually have a hand in that.
You're firing me up, Fradel. And you know what I love that you said is that gives you the confidence. And it's so true. So many people say, if I have a will, I'm going to die. Au contraire. If you tell the universe, I am worthy of a legacy, I'm worthy of, you're going to have a long life, God willing. I mean, look, it doesn't mean that if you have a plan in place, you're going to live to 100, although I hope it for everybody.
Right.
But the fact is that it doesn't, to me, it's letting the universe know I am worth something.
Yes.
And my life has value.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's taking that responsibility, right? Not just letting it be other people's responsibility, the government's responsibility. It's your life, right? It's your responsibility. So, to piggyback on what you had asked me before, as I learned this for myself, and got a certain level of success in the business, I realized that there's a lot of people that want to start a business or maybe even want to get into the financial industry, and it has a pretty big barrier of entry industry-wide, but especially for women to get into this business. So my passion evolved to not just helping families with this or businesses, but also to educating and training and mentoring and coaching people that want to get in the financial services industry, but want to do it in a way where they can have their own business and call the shots. And that's really where I focus on now and spend most of my time is helping people become successful in that space.
So when you're bringing people on and you're giving them a platform, you have the processes and procedures that are successful, that you can train them on so that they can build their own business. What makes an amazing entrepreneur in your organization?
That is the magic question, right? I'll start first with what it's not, because I think that a lot of times when you think about, what's the perfect person, automatically people think of credentials, licenses, background, what have their experience. And while all those lend some impact, the biggest thing that I think that it makes someone, on the path to success is I'm going to say three things. Number one, it's their desire to win. What are they hungry? Like if they have a satisfaction, if they're okay, right, with whatever level of income, whether it's 30,000 or 100,000 or 300, they have a level of satisfaction or comfort with where they are. It's very hard to move them forward to make them more successful. So number one is their hunger, their desire. The second thing is their coachability, their willingness to learn. Right? How coachable are they? A lot of times people have this, I guess I'll call it an attitude, but I've been there, done that. I already know everything. There's nothing left to learn. I mean, personally, I've been in this business for 16 years. I know that I'm just getting started, right? I know there's a lot more to learn, and I've committed to become a lifelong learner. As long as I want to move forward, I'm going to continue to learn. And so when I meet someone, I'm looking for that, right? I'm looking for someone that wants to learn, that wants to grow, and not just learn for the sake of learning, but coachability means learning for the sake of action, where they're learning so that they can actually put it into action. And so, that would really be my second thing. So hunger, coachability, and the third one is being able to get into a leadership role, right? Because whether you're going to be dealing with a team or not, even just leading someone to their own financial future takes leadership, right? It takes learning those skills. I don't think you're born with it. I think you can learn it. And so it's someone that really wants to get into that leadership role, cares about people, and wants to develop that side of them. So that would be my answer for that.
It's beautiful. And it's actually a very spiritual answer, Fradel, because the desire, if we desire something in the world, it is written that it belongs to us. We just have to work for it. And what better way to work for it than being coached by people and learning constantly and truly owning that leadership? Because look, some people might be listening to this and think we're talking about people who might not have a lot, who need to be led. And the fact of the matter is, I have billionaire clients who have nothing in place.
That's right.
They're amazing on the rat race of life and getting ahead in their business, but they're not thinking big picture. What does it mean? And when people typically go to do a plan, they're a lot of that time thinking about taxes. There's an election year coming up. The state exemption may go down depending on who went. But the fact is, the taxes just mean there's more in the pie. But what are you going to do with that pie?
Right, right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I find that people tend to focus on the things that they know about, meaning even if it's not something they know about, they know to ask, but sometimes it's the things they don't know to ask about that's actually the most important. And so that's really where, you know, uncovering those things sometimes is very key, and identifying what should they be focused on, right?
I love that. And, you know, it really brings me back to something I learned very early in my personal development, which, let's be real, Fradel, you and I have spent a lot of time, money, and energy developing ourselves.
Yes.
There is no way to lead others unless you look internally. You're not born queen of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to step into the power of who you are and understand it's an inside job.
Right.
And I know for a fact, and we've never even specifically spoken about it, but I know the amount of work you've done on yourself, because you cannot be this enlightened leader without having done that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you met me 16 years ago, the person I am today, it's two different people, and I wouldn't even recognize myself. You know what I mean? So 100%. And I hope that if you meet me in 5 years or in 10 years, I'm also different then, because the biggest insult I can ever get is, oh, you're still the same, you know, because that means you haven't grown, right?
Grow or die, baby.
Yes. Yes.
What I love about what you said, Fradel, is people know what they know. And that's a tiny super fraction of what's available in knowledge in the world. Then you know what you don't know, things you can Google.
Yes.
You know, what's today's AFR rate? What is the estate tax exemption? What does life insurance do? You can Google those things. You know you don't know it, but you can figure it out. But what we don't know, we don't know. That's everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how
and I add one more to that, is know who knows what you don't know.
I love that.
And that's where the mentorship comes in. You know, I'm big on mentorship for myself, and then obviously I do that for others as well. But when you know who knows what you don't know, that's all you need to know, because you have everything.
The network, that is something I'm hearing very much come through. It's, look, a lot of people, they go and get degrees and they put their head down and they do very well in school and they go to a career counselor. The career counselor has never had a real job. Sorry, that's why they work in academia. So where are their connections? I think the old form of education is so broken, because you want to bring in the people who actually have done it, and to mentor, to your point, and bring people under their wing to say, look, I've done it and you can do it too. Let's grow together. Because you know what? A young person might be willing to do a lot of the things that someone who's 30, 40, 50 years old and says, I've been there, done that. I don't want to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And what power. But look, you're very much a believer in that, as I know we have spoken about non-traditional ways of educating our children.
Yes.
So because you do so much educating of your team, if you could pick a way that people would be amazing career professionals and live the life of their dreams, what kind of planning would you put in place instead of the current educational system?
So that's an interesting question, because we've gone through a massive, you know, I guess experiences really. So growing up, I hated school. I was very non-academic. I didn't love, you know, the general traditional learning. I was the troublemaker, you know, in the class, and not because I was a bad kid. I never got into real trouble. I just didn't have an outlet for my passions, of something to throw my energy into. And so as I, you know, started a picture of having a family, of having kids, I always said, you know what, I don't want my kids to go to a traditional school, because I don't want them to have that experience, right? I want them to find what do they like, and then go do something. I didn't really have a plan for that, because I never looked into it. But then when I found out I was pregnant with my first son, Gabriel, that was my, you know, project, right? Like, where am I going to send him to school? And I'm a planner, so I want to have, you know, he's not even born yet. I want to know what school he's going to and everything. And so initially I said, oh, I'm going to teach him, right? I'm going to be the teacher. I want to teach him about how to be an entrepreneur, how to be a leader. Those are the things I want to teach him. And then I was having a conversation with someone, and they convinced me otherwise. They said, no, you're in New York. There's the best schools. At least go check it out, which I did. And I think I got sold on exterior values. And what I mean by that is, you know, you can walk into, if you've ever walked into a beautiful school in New York, the aesthetics are nothing like what I went to school, right? Where there's like bars on the windows.
Tables, the beautiful foyer. Yes. Exactly.
Yes. And so human nature, you feel like, wow, it looks great. It must be great. And so I really learned from that experience that what was my expectation, just because it's a beautiful building and even the supplies were beautiful, beautiful arts and this and that, that's not everything, right? And so I had that experience. I sent my kids the price, I'm not even gonna go there, of what a New York private school costs for like a 3-year-old. But after several years, I realized that it wasn't getting what I pictured, right? What I desired, which was my kid leaning into what is their interests. And so then I decided, well, I didn't do enough research. I didn't go through enough schools. So I literally went and visited 40 different schools, including public schools, because I said, well, if I'm paying 40 grand a year, maybe I can do the same thing for free. So I went literally 40 schools, private,
you
public.
You could start another business of
exactly. And then at the end of the day, I said, you know what? It doesn't matter what I pay. None of these are going to satisfy what I'm looking for. So why don't I just go back to what my gut told me initially, which was homeschooling, which we did. And this is prior to COVID. And by the way, I think there's a big difference between distance learning and homeschooling. Distance learning is just doing public school or private school at home. Homeschooling is you are the creator of the school, right? And our school, we call it family school because everyone's a teacher and a learner. So that's what we decided to name our school. And it's great. I mean, you know, it's definitely not perfect, right? Don't expect perfection. Even as a planner, I threw plans out the window for a little bit because sometimes you have to just go with the flow. And so for now, my ideal way of learning is led by my children. You know, what are your interests? And we introduce things, right? Like we're constantly introducing different things. We tried piano, they didn't like it, you know, and it doesn't mean that we're going to allow them to stop and start, but I just want to see what is it that they can excel at and then really focus on those things.
Focus on the strengths. And Fradel, what I love, I saw a video of your oldest son and I'm literally getting goosebumps thinking about it. And he was echoing who you are and who he is, of you can do it and you're a leader and you're a champion. And how old is he? 5 years old?
Yeah, he's 5 now, but that video, I think he was like 3. Yeah.
So have that confidence instilled in a child at 3 years old to say, I'm a champion. I mean, I'm literally getting tears. It is the greatest gift you could, because, you know, Fradel, so many people are like the path, and I'm thinking this is the best thing to ever happen, because how many of our insecurities were given to us by snot-nosed kids when we were 5, 6, 10 years old? Yeah. And we're still trying to get over them as adults.
Right. That's so true.
So I just, you know, kudos to you, my dear. Truly, it was a beautiful thing to watch. And I know who you are as a human being, and it showed about the values you're bringing to your children, which says everything about you, because a woman and a man is who they are at work, at home, at school. I mean, we are who we are.
Yeah.
So I can just imagine, you know, what you instill in your team. And Fradel, with that, how did you do it? Like for people who are just starting a business, you know, it sounds amazing, but a lot of people can't even fathom having 5 people work for them, forget 500.
Yeah.
So what are the steps that people can do to follow and have that abundance that we wish for everybody in this world?
Yeah. So I think it is that topic that, like, wow, where do I start? But, you know, we kind of touched on this earlier, but the number one is you got to start with you, right? You need to work on your own development. You don't just start from day one. And most people are taught the employee mindset, you know, go to school, get a degree, get a great job, which is great for some people and some vocations. But the reality is, if you want to be an entrepreneur or you want a level of massive success, of huge success, there's going to be a difference between not just what you're doing, but how you're thinking how you lead yourself first. Before you can lead others, you have to lead yourself. And so it starts with the little things, right? Like think about what promise have you made to yourself, even just this year, right? Obviously we've had a crazy year so far, but what were some of the things, January 2020, we were starting a new decade, we were all pumped up, everyone was excited. And what were some of the things you told yourself you're going to do, right? How many of them have you actually attempted to do? And so those are, when you start keeping those promises to yourself, you're growing yourself, you're growing your confidence, you're growing your ability to now, because you can lead yourself, you can lead others. So being able to have to scale, number one, takes leadership. But I believe, and I'm very into this, it also takes systems. Now, some companies will create systems for themselves. That takes a lot of capital, a lot of know-how, or hiring external companies to do that. And that is sort of the bridge where what I find, they say statistically 33% of businesses don't make it past year, I think it's 2 or 3. So what happens? Why? Because they know how to do something, or they have a great idea, or they know how to improve a product that already exists. But then they get to a point where they start selling or they start growing, and then that's where the fail happens. And that's because they can't scale the business. There's no duplication. Have you ever saw a restaurant that was a great restaurant, and then when they opened the second one, it failed?
Fell to shit, right?
Right?
Because,
why?
Like Michael Barber says, they had an entrepreneurial thought, but just because you're a baker, an amazing baker, does not mean you know how to run the business of a bakery.
Correct. Exactly. So learning how to run the business, having systems, and that's really, I was very fortunate to be brought into the financial industry in a platform that had a very, very specific system, a system of scale, a system of duplication. And so as long as I knew how to learn, grow myself, and follow, certain steps, the world is my limitations, right? Like it could be as big or as small as the vision that I have. And it's something I work on every day, right? To grow my vision, because I know that the scale of it will just be as big as I think. And so I think that for people that want to start a business, understand that it starts with you, but also know maybe there's so many ways right now that you could be able to find a platform that already has a system in place that you can plug into and really be able to grow at a much faster pace than you would be able to do by yourself.
It's what you say is so amazing, Fradel. And for me, in my own personal life, I had a 5-person firm in 2015. My partner and I, he was a much older man, like 85 years old, God bless him, we're still friendly. But just we had different visions of where the business was going. I was 25, he was 85. Of course, we had different visions, very different area of life. And then I went and I was just like, you know what? I don't want to worry about paying for people, and I'm just going to go it at my own. And it really stifled my growth, because I know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And when you don't hire for those weaknesses and place people into a system where they can thrive, you're doing yourself a disservice. Mm-hmm. This year, I shared with you right before we got on to the show that thank God we've been growing astronomically. And it's because now I realize, like, why should I do anything that is not my A+ game? Because I don't want to do it. The client feels that you don't want to do it. And instead, the level you can grow, how much more you can go when you have a team instead of going at it by yourself all the time, which I think you have mastered.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the entrepreneurial road is lonely sometimes too, right? Yeah. So having people who are going in the same direction as you, it could give you a sense of encouragement just from that. And absolutely, you got to play to your strengths. And I do also, I'm a big believer of working on weaknesses, but at the same time, you can also have people that can help you with those weaknesses, right? Like, for example, my personality is very shy, but I realized very quickly that in business, shy equals broke, right? So I had to still work on that weakness, but I also realized very early on, I can get a team of people who are great at relationship building. And then while I work on it, I still have that part of the business running. And so I'm a big believer of team. I think it's something that Even if you think you don't need it, you need it, you know?
Let me ask you about, as people are growing and entrepreneurs who are maybe starting and are growing to where you've gone, and I know where you're going is even bigger. How quickly would you say that the people who aren't working out on your team, how quickly do you give them a second chance? Or do you say, you know what, I really see that this is not a fit, and you cut them? What's your process like?
So my process is, there's two things that would make me cut someone. Okay. Number one is unethical practices. I believe you're either honest or you're not. There's no middle. So that is a no-brainer. Like, you're either on. So that's number one. Number two is if you're negatively affecting others on the team. So meaning, even if your performance is not up to par, right? You're not doing great. And obviously there's certain cases where if you're paying someone and they're not doing what you need to do, that's another story. But we're talking, maybe it's an independent contractor status, which most of my team is. You know, maybe they're not performing, maybe they're not living up to the dreams they set out for themselves, but maybe they're learning, right? Maybe they're in a stage where they're going through a growth process and they're not negatively affecting others on the team. Why not let them learn, right? But the moment it affects others who are trying to make things work for themselves, and that could happen through a negative attitude, complaining, you know, things that create this negative environment, because positive environment is everything, right? It's a big deal. So that would be the second thing.
I see. And it's very good, because a lot of people, they know they have the gossiper and the traditional office, and maybe now it's different because we're all on Zoom. But that sowing of dissent is such a powerful negative force in a business. And a lot of business owners are scared to cut it. Yeah. But I think that's a cancer that has to go immediately.
Absolutely. And even if it's a high performing person, I've had to do that too. So sometimes you have the low performing, might be a little easier when that happens.
Right.
But you have someone who's a top producer, someone that's doing good, and they do something dishonest, or they cut corners in the law, like, or start stirring up things in the team that are negativity. I mean, like you said, cut out the cancer. And so that's the principles that I go by.
Fradel, if you could give our viewers your number one piece of advice for growing themselves and becoming who they want to be, what would it be?
I think my number one thing is belief. You know, at the end of the day, we have a blueprint, right? The blueprint of our mind is, when we're born, it's blank. And as we grow up, people place things on it, right? And suddenly it has a pattern. It has certain ways that we start thinking and we start believing. And I think that is what causes you to believe a certain way, but it doesn't have to be how you continue to think and you continue to believe. And so your belief system is such a big deal, because it can make it or break it for you, right? It could make it or break it for you in so many areas, but the number one thing you have to believe in is you. Doesn't matter what's going on around you, right? You need to work on believing in you. And what does belief in yourself mean? It means that even if you're not perfect, which I don't believe anybody is perfect, but even if you don't think, oh, you know, maybe if you're trying to be healthy, oh, I didn't eat healthy today. If you're trying to do your best, or I didn't do great today. You know, oh, I failed, I didn't close. All these things, even when they happen, you need to believe that you can do better tomorrow. And that's why when you focus on winning the day, right? Win today for today, but do it in a level that you believe the next day could be even better. And so belief will dictate everything. It will dictate your attitude, which will then dictate your actions. And so I think that the number one thing that you can work on is believing in yourself, so that it will have a trickle effect on all the rest of the areas of your life.
Well, Fradel, you have definitely lit a spark in all of us. Your belief in yourself is evident, and what you've built is amazing. And I just cannot wait to see you continue to soar. It is a pleasure being your friend, and thank you for that honor. So thank you so much, Fradel, for coming on today and sharing your infinite wisdom with our viewers.
Thank you so much for having me.